So today's topic is you need direction in addiction recovery, and I'm going to give you a little hack on how to do that. So for those who are new to the channel, my name is Ashley Bloxham. I'm a therapist. I specialise in childhood and trauma, but I also am an addictions counsellor, and I've overcame addiction. Obviously, that's the most important thing to qualification I've got. I've been schooled in it myself. And I also know what it's like to have loved ones who struggled in addiction, but I've also studied it right the way up to PhD level. You are the first one, Elijah. Hello. And thanks for the likes. I see them floating up. So today's topic is, what is today's topic? Direction. Yeah, we need direction in addiction recovery. So we talk about distract yourself. Often when I say on the channel to the people who've been recovered for a while, what's your top tip? It's always distraction and self-love. So I thought I'd focus on distraction and an actual tangible technique that you can do. So one of the things in addiction recovery is, one, we tend to feel rubbish about ourselves. We tend to feel like we're failing in some way. We get shame. It's awful. Also, we put all of our time and energy into making the addiction happen, as opposed to all the other stuff that ideally we would want to do in life. So what can we do? We can sit there and write a bucket list of all the things that we've wanted to do, but we haven't had the balls to do it. We haven't had the time or the energy. We've felt like too much of a failing addict to do it, and write all these things down. And then just start to tackle them. So think about, okay, which one is the easiest to do? Because in the first instance, when we're coming out of addiction, we're not going to have the greatest of energy. Dopamine's going to be flat. So think about which is the first one on the bucket list that I'm going to do, and just keep tackling the bucket list. So what's really great about this is it's involving your anterior prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain which is responsible for long-term thinking, but it's equally responsible for impulse control. So anytime that you're starting to have a craving, just take a deep breath and think, right, let's tackle the bucket list and start to work toward it. And the thing is, if there's things on that list that you've been scared to do that. Because realistically, you've been putting a lot of energy into something that feels shit and scary, so you might as well do something that is good and scary. So an example of what I did on my bucket list when I first came out of my addiction recovery was write an article and send it off to get published. And it got published and I was fucking over the moon about it. My friend, she was doing like skydive jumps and things like that. She'd never been on a holiday. That was on her bucket list, so she started saving up. So yeah, it's a cool practical technique that you could do, which actually helps on impulse control. Let's see what people are saying. Hi, Chris Johnson, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Chris is also saying hello to all. Do your toes match your fingers? Are you talking about nail polish? I can't remember what colour. No, I've got that colour on actually. But they don't always match. It's just whatever colour I can be bothered with. I haven't got the little random one, no one. Yeah, so anyone who's listening, I'm a therapist and I'm also an addictions counsellor. So if you've got any questions around addiction and mental health, I will be happy to help. So going back to this idea of the bucket list, give us a peek. I am not showing my feet, Sean. Don't be so ridiculous. This is not some weird foot fetish thing. Although I did look into consider doing that at one point. Me and my friends were like, when we're peak single mom days, on the door, we're like, should we sell pictures of our feet online? Like, I feel like that could be an option. But I'm not doing it for free on YouTube, that's for sure. Hey, Chris. Bit of a hard day today, MH-wise, but getting there. Oh, mental health-wise. Glad you're doing well. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Chris Johnson. Mental health days are fucking shit, aren't they, when you're having bad mental health days? What you're doing to support yourself on them days, because sometimes we can't help mental health days, but I think being a little bit proactive on like, okay, how am I going to dial up self-care and positive self-talk can be helpful. Has anyone got any tips to help on bad mental health days? It sounds like, Chris, though, you're showing up and you're doing things for yourself, because you're showing up here. I think that's always just showing up in any way you can for yourself. It's worth a try, Sean. We appreciate it. There's a saying in Newcastle, which is shy Ben's getting out, and it's like Ben's means children. Obviously, we know what shy means, and nout means nothing. So, like, if you're shy, you get nothing, but you're still getting out in terms of images of me feet. I like the confidence. So, right, Chris, got to train today, so got a run to do, and then working later. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Just like if you can do stuff like that, you're winning. Like just still doing the thing. There's somebody who I've spoken to, and like obviously I don't want to say any names because it's just because for confidentiality, but there's somebody who I've been speaking to who's got a specific condition which really does impact the mental health terribly, and they've said that what they do is every day they train, like even if they feel like shit, and it really helps it stopping from getting really, really bad and negative. And they're like, it might not be a heavy training, but showing up, and that's made a huge difference. So yeah, you're on the money, Chris. I just hope it gets better for you, because there's nothing worse than feeling shite. Eric Motor, hello miss, hello, how you doing? My cat was called Eric. It's because we had this stray cat, and like I don't know if any of you would remember this, but you remember when Eric Cantona smacked the spokesman? It was the same weekend. The cat went up to me dog and just swiped it across the face, so he got called Eric. I'm drinking coffee. It's the only substance in my body because I'm over a week free of nicotine. I've quit vaping, and yesterday was 4 years clean of ketamine, which was my drug of choice. I've quit alcohol, so yeah, caffeine and me of just like, this is my last thing that I'm clinging on to for dear life. Right, Eric, I don't want to disturb, but I want to ask whatever you want. Eric, you're not disturbing. It's a Q&A, like any questions around addiction and mental health, I'm happy to help, and I'd rather talk about addiction and mental health than me feet and me coffee addiction, to be honest with you. Well, I don't mind talking about that. I feel like you guys would probably prefer to hear something different. Chris that has said that congratulations on 4 years clean also. Yeah, thank you. I forgot the last 2 years. I forgot and then remembered after. But somebody messaged, so I remembered the day before, and somebody messaged us on YouTube saying congratulations. It reminded us. Have I ever had a yeast infection? Well, I'm a girl, like all girls have yeast infections at some point. I feel like a lot of it, like we sit there like as girls, like, oh, girls don't have any problems, we don't have pain when we're on periods, we don't pump, we don't do this. Like, yeah, we do. So I know you're trying to be a bit of a monkey, but I'm just going to say that anyways, because I am so sick of pretending not to be human, and I am fucking fully human. So yeah, I have. Eric, I'm a sugar and nicotine addict. How to quit? It's making me mad. So a good thing that you can do, which I did, which has helped with both of those habits. So I always say that you don't have to stop the thing first. Instead, what you can do is you can treat your recovery as today my recovery start, and part of that at some point down the line is removing the addictions, because recovery isn't just about the addictions themselves. It's about the root cause of the addiction, and it's about your internal environment, aka your mind, because we live inside our minds, and our bodies, because we're living inside our mind and body, and our external environment. So for me, what's been really helpful in both of those addictions, with all sugar, even just drinking, so sugar, drinking and nicotine. Drinking wasn't really addiction, it was just problematic. But with those three things, I started focusing on my physical health. So I started like thinking, okay, I want to eat well, I'm going to have supplements, I want to go to the gym. I've started a sport, that was later on, but I do jiu-jitsu. So I started researching like about your gut microbiome, and started like really starting to pay attention to my body. And because I started getting like really keen on like me gut health, and to be honest with you, going to the gym was the massive motivator, doing like cold showers, stuff like that. It all really helps. Well, I wasn't doing cold showers, I was doing it outside. But it all motivates you, because then you get to a point where you're like, well, actually, Like, I would be much better at jiu-jitsu if I wasn't smoking. If I'm going to be going to the gym, actually, I should make some changes with eating sugar. So, like, that's where my motivations came from. And I didn't stop the things at first. I focused on being active and started really getting into that. So, yeah, that might be something that might be helpful to you. I don't know, Eric. I don't know if you already are active, though. And if you are, I would hammer down into that more. David Pollard, how are you doing? I'm good, thank you. ABD, I would love to cook for you. I just get me plenty meals, I'm fine with that. I'm not on here to find someone to cook for us, but thank you for the offer. Elijah, what if someone is addicted to a combination of caffeine and porn? Which addiction do they work on first? I would always go with the most problematic. So, like, for me, caffeine is the last thing that I'm working on because it is the least of my problems. Like, when I was sitting there sniffing ket, bladder failing, least of my problems was vaping and having the odd drink and drinking loads of coffee, doom scrolling. So, like, I would always prioritize, and that might look like the one that's causing the most harm and damage, or it might look like the one that's triggering things. So what I mean by that is, it might be, say, gambling's causing the most harm, but you gamble when you have a drink. So I would go for the drink first. So yeah, I would say for me, if I was going to look at that, I think porn addiction could be causing more damage to, like, relationships and stuff like that. Maybe it's caffeine though, like, you know you best, everyone's different. My man's saying, get mad at Eric. I swear it works. Get so mad you have to change. Yeah, that's a good... I've never heard that before. So, like, does that look like this is fucking pissing me off? I'm not a fucking smoker. I'm so fucking sick of this life. I'm going to do different. I suppose it's like, it's where we put our intention is what's going to happen. If we're putting all of our intention to smoking and sugar, then that's going to be the motivation. So for me, all my attention was like getting as off my dial as possible. When I started putting attention into loving myself, because that's where my recovery started, well before I removed the addiction, was learning to love myself. I started putting the attention into loving myself, and then the addiction didn't really fit with that. So then that had to be addressed. So if you're putting your attention into being mad and making change, yeah, I could see why that would work. Sacred Mess Brew, I'm the same. 35 years sober from alcohol and 3 years from drugs, but that coffee, I just can't/won't let it go. Yeah. And I'm also ADHD, so, like, I'm not on any stimulant. I'm not on any medication for it. So this, for me, I'm like, the way I justify it is it's antioxidants and it's the only stimulant I've got in my body. But we're always going to justify an addiction, aren't we, really? I don't know, maybe one day I'll go caffeine free, but I've just quit vaping, I think, one thing at a time. That's what I was saying. Sometimes we're like, I want to be teetotal. I do think going teetotal all at once can be very overwhelming for the system. And look, I'm not here to tell you how to do your recovery, but I've found one thing at a time has been better. Thanks, Project. That was kind of you to say. My PF is saying, please advise crystal meth addiction and where to find support online, groups online. Yeah, PF, please do go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk, and I will get you to the right services for you. I will give you some one-to-one support with that, because I don't want to... Crystal meth is a big addiction. I don't want to sit here and do it online. But that's why I offer free one-to-ones. There's no charge, just to support people who are like big addictions or really struggling. So go to my website. It's on my YouTube channel, or comment on any of my videos and I'll reply. I will say, anyone who has sent us a message for the last week and a half, I've not replied to any. I'm going to reply to them today. My head's been up my arse. I've been very human this week, but I will get back to you if you're waiting. Eric is saying, so you really replace your habits instead of quitting. Yeah. So for nicotine, And so I had an end date for nicotine. So for me, and look, I pushed it to the fucking limit. I had an end date. My end date was, so for my birthday, every year I do, instead of New Year's resolutions, I do year resolutions on my birthday. So at the age of 37, I'm coming up to, I want to do this. So when I was 36, I said I want to do boxing and I want to quit vaping. So that was my end date. And that gave it, and I was like, the idea behind it was I want to get really fit and into martial arts that I don't want to vape anymore. Because I knew that I'd quit eating sugar because I was going to the gym and training. So that was my plan. Now I'm turning 37 next month. I've only just stopped this month. So I pushed it to the limit. But get an end date so you've got something to work toward. And then just think about, okay, whatever the addiction is, I'm going to make my life so mint, or I'm going to do something that I know eventually the addiction's going to be a barrier to succeeding. And then I'm going to get rid of it that way. So yeah. I just got really good habits that I knew the addiction wouldn't coincide with, and it's worked. I didn't do boxing, I'm doing jiu-jitsu instead, but that was because there was logistics. So yeah. Has anybody else got any tips? What addiction did you have? If you don't mind me asking, it isn't noticeable. You look great. Thank you. So I was addicted to ketamine, but my psychiatrist said I had an addiction to mind-altering substances, because the whole of my 20s and 30s I was on planet off my nut on either alcohol, honestly I've tried everything but crack and heroin, to be honest with you. Fentanyl, like I've not done like prescription drugs. I've done some prescription drugs. But yeah, like recreational drugs basically. The reason why it doesn't look noticeable is because my recovery hasn't just involved removing drugs. I've really focused on like looking after my body and so I've not just removed drugs, I've focused on my health massively. So I've almost became addicted to health and well-being and mental health, and that, so I've shifted it to that. And look, your body repairs. Like if I show you a photo of us when I was an addict, I might post it on my YouTube channel, I looked like an addict. So yeah, anybody can make themselves look healthy, even if you've been in addiction for your whole life, which I had. Were you addicted to something? Yeah, I've just said that, Bubba, but I know you've asked before I got away. So yeah, ketamine. Richard Guy, there's usually a list of addictions. Yeah, so for my main addiction was ketamine. Sugar was another one. Vaping. The other thing that I was addicted to, which was a byproduct of ketamine, was in sleeping tablets. So because I couldn't sleep, I needed to have some kind of sleeper at the end of the night. So it wasn't one specific thing, although I preferred Xanax. Because that was like sitting in a nice floaty cloud. So I had a bit of a buzz before I went to bed. But it would just be whatever I could get my hands on to help us sleep. So yeah, that is true. You do normally have a list of addictions. Eric, hard to quit caffeine. It is. Do you know why it is? There's no motivation for it. Like, this is the thing I had with quitting nicotine. There was no immediate motivation to quit nicotine. Like, if I was like 50 and I was told I had cancer, immediate reason to stop. But to be fair, I know people who've just been like, fuck it, like I'm dying, I might as well anyways. That's what happened with somebody who was really dear to us. So, but there's no immediate thing for it, for caffeine and nicotine. So that's where for me with the nicotine, the jiu-jitsu was helpful for lung capacity. The same for training at the gym for sugar, like trying to lose weight and have a good body whilst eating sugar didn't go hand in hand. So create a reason. But I mean, coffee, I don't know what's going to stop us from doing that, to be honest with you. Kashif, I had a cocaine addiction for 7 years. Islam changed my life for the best. Look, there's a lot of people who faith is helpful, and like, this isn't a faith-based channel. There is other ways to hijack. So there's something in your brain which, when they look at research studies, the same pathways in your brain light up when people pray as when they take drugs. So it's really interesting because a lot of people in addiction recovery move to faith, and that helps them. But actually what we can do is, it can be gratitude. It doesn't need to be prayer. It can be faith in yourself, in humanity, and just prayer and gratitude. So yeah, but that makes absolute sense, Kazif. And for me, I've got to say, my spirituality really helped us. Quitting sugar, it's difficult. Sugar's a really hard addiction. I've quit a lot of addictions in my life, and I would say sugar was fucking solid, because the thing is, it's always, it's kind of like, with ketamine, I know this, like, with my friends who had heroin, you can cut off dealers, friends, triggers for it. Sugar's always there, and it's actually, and you still have to eat sugar. You still, because I tried to cut out sugar, like, I did it the wrong way. I cut out carbs and everything with sugar in it, and like, realistically, I saw a dietitian, and they're like, no, you need more sugar in your diet. So like, I need carbs and stuff, but you've still got to eat sugar. So you've got to have day in, day out control over it. It's just, you get to a certain point where your taste buds change. But yeah, sugar's a hard one to quit, I would say. And again, you don't have that, like, if you're struggling with a heroin addiction or ketamine addiction, for me, like, it's very fucking obvious that you need to stop. There's some serious problems showing up day in, day out in your life where you need to stop. Like, sugar isn't as noticeable. Maybe there might be if you've put on weight, but yeah, it's a hard one. Anthony, I love your accent. It's adorable, little Geordie accent. I think we were voted third best or second best desirable accent in the UK. There was Irish was first, I remember that, and then I don't know if Geordie was second or third. I like a Scottish accent, me, or a Manc. I love a Manc accent. I don't know what it is about that. Elijah, yeah, I'm ADHD, so stimulants, caffeine, porn. Yeah, so caffeine, I would say, if you're going to try, I mean, is the porn causing issues in your life as well? Like, how about the porn addiction? If it's like causing chaos in your life, then it needs to be addressed. If it's just shame around watching porn, like that, maybe, like, look at that. Like, why are you classing it as an addiction? We can definitely go through this. If you want to go on my website, we can hash it out. But yeah, if you've got ADHD, you're going to have to be doing something that you're getting your dopamine fix from. So for me, exercise is really good. I've just bought myself, because jiu-jitsu is really great. And you can do like 5-minute spurts of exercise. It's good for ADHD. So I dance. I put my tunes on and have like a 5 to 45-minute dance. But the other thing I've just done, because I've done jiu-jitsu, is I've just got like a martial arts dummy, like so that I can practice it like multiple times through the day, and that helps with ADHD. Cold showers, stuff like that help with ADHD. So try and get like intentional fixes of dopamine, Elijah, because that's what you one of your big barriers that you're dealing with is like you're at a dopamine deficit. Eric is saying, I literally do this instead of smoking. I'm coming up 25 soon. What do you do instead of smoking, Eric? Oh, caffeine. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I have people come on the channel saying that they smoke weed. Like, don't tell me not to smoke weed. Like, it stopped me from a crack addiction. I'm like, whoa, I'm not telling you to stop smoking weed. I know so many people who've got hard drugs and they smoke weed now. And I'm like, if that's keeping you off crack cocaine or heroin or like severe alcohol addiction, like, smoke the weed always. I'm always going to advocate for that. And it's exactly the same of like, if you are like having caffeine instead of smoking, I'm always going to advocate for that, because it ultimately, if you look at the two, this is a much better addiction to have than this. And look, we are creatures of habits. We've all got vices because we're human. And it's all to do with the dopamine response in our brain. We're all driven toward things that, like, we're motivated to go and get things which are worthwhile. So we're always going to have vices, things that serve a purpose. So if caffeine's something for you and it stops you from smoking, like, big up the caffeine. Yeah, definitely. By the way, I'm just working down in chronological order with the comments, so I will get yours. Did you say, Erica, you're saying you're coming up to the age of 25 soon? Or 25 years not smoking. Ellie, you look good. Thank you, Ellie. I appreciate that. I love the name Ellie. One of my favourite people in the world is called Ellie. She lives down south, which is probably for the best, because I feel like we would have been off the rails if we lived in the same city. But I love the name. Deaf Bat. Crackety crack. Is that what you used to take? Anyways, never tried drugs, glad of it. Yeah, I mean, it's all fun and games until it's not. So you've definitely, I would say, swerved something bad. I mean, I really hope my son doesn't try drugs, but young people, I think you'll be hard pressed to find. I think it's hard to find people who are millennials and below who haven't at least tried a drug. The problem is they can be really fun. And then because they're really fun, like I said, we get motivated to do the things which are worthwhile. And then they just fucking destroy lives. That's really sad. UK, I'm addicted to weed and acid. Yeah, I mean, do you take acid all the time? Can you? I didn't know. I would have thought from my experience of acid, this is just me being curious, UK, but my experience of acid is that it starts to wear off when you take it a few days in a row. Or do you just mean you like to take it more regularly than... It's just not ideal taking acid? Or can you take acid every day? I don't know. I've never heard of an acid addiction. So please enlighten us. But if you wanted some support, UK, absolutely get in touch. Or does the weed make the acid work? I don't know. Thanks for the tips, but a lot of it won't apply to real addictions which take your whole life. Mark, no, they absolutely won't. These are just like little things for people, and they won't. And like the thing is though, Mark, what I will say is, like, if we talk about hard drugs, like if that's what you're referring to, like taking crack and heroin and stuff, look, the thing is, and this is what, like, I'm actually writing a book about this. The thing is, like, tips and tricks will not just be what you work for an addiction. Like, absolutely not. And I don't want to sit here and insult you. And I sharp realised this because I was trained to be an addictions therapist. So I was learning about everything about addiction, and none of it was working on me. I was in active addiction, training to be an addictions therapist. And everything that I learned didn't work. And I was like, well, that's fucking scary. And also, like, how the fuck am I going to use any of this stuff to help other people when it won't even work on me? So, no, tips and tricks will not work. Tips and tricks are, I think there's like 4 pillars to recovery. So the first one is services and like knowledge. Like it's the first one, so knowledge, understand, and that's where your tips come into it, like little things that work, services, because you've got people who understand it. That's just one element of it. Harm reduction. The second one is your body, like, so that involves like calming your nervous system. So we need to think about in that knowledge pillar, why do I have addiction in the first place? If you've got an addiction to hard drugs, so like when you're talking about serious addiction, I assume you're talking about like crack or heroin, fentanyl, that kind of thing. There is likely, I would say, a high chance that you've got some really bad childhood stuff has happened, or some kind of trauma. The two often coexist. So we need to understand why it happened. Now, at this point when we're wanting to quit the addiction, I wouldn't suggest going in and healing that, because that can make the addiction worse. But what what it does is understanding, okay, actually, I think the reason why I've got this addiction is because I was abused as a child, or I've got PTSD, or I'm a veteran, or whatever it is. My parents divorced when I was younger. I've got mental health disorders, whatever it is. By acknowledging that, you can start to say, okay, this is why I have the addiction. And by saying, putting the blame where it belongs on the reason, means you free up shame. Because it's so incredibly difficult to come off addiction if you were shaming yourself and beating yourself up. Shame is one way ticket back to addiction. So that's one element why. So the next thing is, okay, I'm using it to regulate myself because I've had repeated trauma. So my nervous system is shot, or I've got undiagnosed mental health disorders. So I'm going to learn to regulate my nervous system. I'm also going to eat well, because a lot of mental health is impacted by our gut microbiome. So I'm going to focus on my physical health, exercise, etc. The next one is connection. So make sure that you're leaning into healthy connections in your life and getting rid of shit connections, or putting boundaries in with them. And that might also look like distancing people who are addicts as well. So going to groups are helpful, so connecting to like-minded people. And the final one is your mental health, your mind. Positive self-talk all the way. Learn how to love yourself. So yeah, Mark, I fully agree. Tips alone aren't going to work. You need to address all 4 of those pillars: mind, body, connection, and knowledge, which services come into. Don't know people still do acid. I know loads of people who do acid, of all different ages as well. Acid and shrooms. Richard Guy, there is always a capacity to be addicted to anything in this life, no matter how good initially. Yeah, there is. And especially if you've got mental health disorders, that likelihood of being addicted to things massively increases. Like ADHD, 50% more likely to have a drug addiction. That's just drug addiction. Yeah, so there's loads of different stats like that. I'll not bore you with them. Also, if you have high ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences, you can do that ACEs test online. If you have high adverse childhood experiences, more likely to have addiction. So there's factors which make you a lot more susceptible as well. But in the mix of that, human nature. So every human. Richard is saying, yeah, it's causing the teeth problem. What's causing the teeth problem? I'm not sure what you're on about there, Eric. Cora, my 22-year-old boy deeply addicted off watching bad stuff off the net. It's my day 3 of recovery, have failed so many times, don't know why I'm so lusty, why God makes me like this. Oh, male 20, I thought you were saying so you're a male 22-year-old boy. Right, okay. First of all, it sounds like, well, look, Cora, if you want to have a one-to-one, we can. First of all, it sounds like you're shaming yourself. Like everybody, like a lot of people watch porn. I've watched porn. Like when you're saying like bad stuff off the net, let's stop it. Let's stop. Porn is bad because it causes issues, and porn is bad because the people in the industry are getting treated like shit, and there's a lot of human trafficking. So that's why porn's bad. You as a person are not bad for watching porn. So there's a distinction. You're a 22-year-old boy. I mean, quite common. Your hormones and testosterone is going to be through the roof. You're going to be driven to pursue. So think about dopamine. Dopamine drives us towards things that matter. For a 22-year-old male, with your hormones and your biology, what's really going to matter to you on a subconscious level is sex. It's you, from a biological standpoint, this is your peak time. So it's very common for people your age to be watching porn and a lot of it. So I think the first thing is to stop shaming yourself with words like bad stuff on the net. I don't know why I'm so lusty. Why God made you like this. God made every male like that. And like every man is driven toward spreading your seed, sex. Sex, that's all you're going to be thinking of. So God made you like that because of evolution, or if you don't want to think about God just from an evolutionary standpoint. So drop the shame and work out how we're going to address the situation. And if you want to have a one-to-one, a plan on how to do that, go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk. But also very normal what you're going through, okay? Can't stress that enough. Sugar's worse than any drug, Real is saying. It's like if you're looking at like ultra processed foods, like it's an absolute carcinogen, and like look, I think just as harmful as other drugs, and look, can cause some serious damage, like people having diabetes and stuff. Like yeah, it is really dangerous, but because it's so normalized, it's something that we don't address, and it's so addictive. And when I started eating really well, my local shop is the Co-op, and I remember walking in getting fuming because I was like, there is literally fuck all that I can buy here in this shop. Like the non-processed food section is so tiny, and it's horrible. It's a carcinogen, and they know it is, but yeah. Honey is fine dependent on quantity. Yeah, honey, yeah, I mean, I think as well, it's like, we need to have sugars in our diet. We do need sugars in our diet. So yeah, it's just about like, it's all about moderation. It's really hard when you've got addiction to do something in moderation. It's like saying to somebody who has got an alcohol addiction to just drink in moderation. And actually I do know quite a few people who've had an alcohol addiction who've managed to, years later, bring it in moderation because they've built up an amazing life, etc. But it's just like doing it at the beginning, it's really difficult. Eric is saying, I heard a rumour that sugar in the UK is a common problem. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And all they've done is they've done this sugar tax, which now means that what we've got instead is it's more expensive, even though everybody has it, or you've just got sweeteners galore, and sweeteners are just as bad for you. It's not the sugar, it's the cost, it's the ultra processed food, which is really, really diabolical. Richard Guy saying Geordie's is the best, thank you. Oh, but then we've got David Pollard saying Manga's the best. I think, can we agree that Northerners are the best? I think the Northerners are the best. Even when you watch Game of Thrones, if anyone's that geeky like me, the Northerners are all the best. Hi Guy, how you doing? If anyone wants some support, go to my website or comment on my videos. Yes, I'm going to pin that. Thank you, Guy. How you doing? Richard Guy, nice. Ecstatic dance is a good remedy. Yeah, I love dancing. I try and do like, I'd say about 3 days a week. I do like half an hour to an hour, probably on average about 45-minute dance. Because I'm a single mom and it's something I can do. But I always do like little 5-10 minute dances. Like when I have to do my activity on me Aura ring, it does like activity question mark, and there's always at least 3 dances I've done a day, because it's really good for ADHD just to have 5-minute spurts of exercise. Another thing you can do is just do 5 minutes of press-ups or pull-ups, or, you know, if you're like dancing isn't me vibe, just find something that you can do. Like I say, I've got myself a jiu-jitsu doll, which is turning up today. So you can just practice jiu-jitsu. If you're doing martial arts, you can buy MMA ones, just something. Punch bag. Ellie is saying, what's your background? Where did you get that information? Did you go to school? So yeah, those there are my qualifications. That's my background. I've spent, I think it's 17 years, because I think I've just crossed over into 17 years. I've spent 17 years studying around childhood trauma and addiction in therapy. like mental health, which all link into each other. So I've studied it for nearly 2 decades. I've also overcame addiction myself, which I developed, ironically, on the way to becoming an addictions therapist. But I took a lot of drugs and I drank every day before that. So the reason why I wanted to be an addictions therapist was because I had a loved one who struggled with addiction, and I had the very, very naive thought that the person in addiction was their fault and it was a choice, and if I could help just one person not be an addict, then somebody wouldn't have to go through what I was going through, where somebody was choosing addiction over me and hurting us. Now, what I learned when I developed an addiction during my time of training was actually it is a choice. It's a fucking solid choice though. And actually it's not that person's fault at all. That actually that person's really struggling and it's awful being an addict. And yeah, it totally flipped my view. So yeah, I've got a lot of qualifications, but the thing I think that qualifies us the most is I've been through addiction and overcame it whilst at school. Fucking bonkers really if you think about it, but I'm spiritual. I think everything happens for a reason. That's what I was keep telling myself. Yes, I am British, Beck. Eric, I understand. Yeah, I understood, but I'm from another country than the UK. There's a different point of view on it. Well, what's a different point of view? I'm interested to know. I love hearing other people's takes. So look, just because I've studied it a lot and overcame it doesn't mean that like I'm the only person who knows everything. Like I love hearing other people's takes on addiction recovery. Like there's a lot of things that I say on here that I've learned off other people and what they've told me. And that's the thing with addiction recovery, like everyone's different, and let's be real, nobody fucking knows everything. Like I'm constantly learning things where I'm wrong or I need to update it. UK, I take acid on breaks. Yeah, so when I'm drug free, but when I go to festivals or events, which are very rarely, like I take whatever comes my way, I'm not gonna lie. So I didn't take acid last time, but I took mushrooms when I went to a festival, which was in August. Because like, let's be real, I spent my whole life taking drugs and alcohol, so if some mushrooms float, I've just got to deal with myself that I won't buy anything. So I'm not going to actively buy things and get in touch with dealers before I go. If something floats my way, yes please. Carson, just because they don't feel addiction or claim it doesn't mean you're not addicted. Yeah, you can just be in denial. The thing is though, I'd argue with that though, is there's different views on what addiction is. So like a very old view of addiction is that like there's a set of criteria that you've got to meet. Then I suppose if you're looking at it from like as addiction disorder, so anyone who's got an addiction is technically got a disorder. So you would be diagnosed from a psychiatrist as having an addictive use disorder, substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder or whatever. That's because there's a set of symptoms. But there's another school of, because like anything, there's a lot of different school of thought, which is the one that I go by, which is addiction is a problem that you want to stop, that you can't stop. So to go off that view of addiction recovery, you could argue that actually just because they don't feel like they're addicted doesn't mean they're not addicted. Well, actually, they're not addicted. Because if it's a problem that you want to stop, if you don't want to stop it, and they're not seeing it as a problem, then it's not an addiction. So like there's different schools of thought, and that's the one I position myself in. But yeah, it depends. It depends which way you're looking at it, I suppose, Carson, is what I'm trying to say. But the reason why I think of it in that point of view is if you are living a life and you enjoy it, and you know you're living your best life, and you're having an addiction what other people would class as an addiction, but you're not harming yourself, you're not harming others, you're living a low stress life, and crack on. Like we only live once and we are supposed to be living happy, healthy lives. I'm not here to moralize drug use or alcohol use or the use of porn or whatever. that's up to you. What I'm here to argue is live your best life. And if you've got an addiction, then you're struggling to live your best life. If you see yourself as having an addiction. What's other people's thoughts though? Because that's just mine. UK, yeah, the weed enhances the acid high. Right, okay, that makes sense. I've never mixed acid and weed because weed sends me absolutely bonkers. And yeah, I would just dread to think. Right, take a minute to judge yourself based off yourself, not other people. Yeah, I love that. Another quote that's quite similar to that, Carson Kelly, that I like to think of is around this idea of like be in competition with yourself, not others, which is quite similar. Like always try and be a better version of yourself and, you know, do better than you did before, as opposed to like comparing yourself. So it's like, don't judge others, don't compare others, like flip the script on yourself. But if you are going to judge yourself, make sure it's compassionate, like compassionate, not like you dickhead. How old is she? I am 36. I'm going to be 37 next month. Eric is saying, I'm going to message you via your website, want to discuss anything else. Is that okay? Of course, Eric, it is. Like I say, I've got a bit of a backlog of emails to get through because I've been quitting vaping and I've had quite an upheaval in my life in the last week, and my son's been off ill. So, but yeah, I would absolutely, please do. Eric, we'll do a one-to-one. It'll be my pleasure, and I'll but just give us a couple of days to get back to you, is what I'm trying to say. Or message today and you'll be in the list of people I get back to today. Richard Guy, what do you do to aid your microbiome? How do you feel about germ theory versus terrain theory? Oh my God, don't give me another fucking rabbit hole to go down. Richard Guy. By the way, I can see everyone's sending little likes. That's really helpful. I can see them floating up. Also, if anyone can give us a subscribe, that is so helpful to my channel to help us get to the right people. So I've never heard about germ theory versus terrain theory. Can you give us a lowdown on it? I'm absolutely going to go look into it. So what do I do to aid my gut microbiome? So have you heard of the Zoe podcast? I listen to that quite often, or I'm subscribed to them. They send like loads of articles. So one of the main things that I've learned from them is, and if also there's the person who did Zoe, if anyone's interested in gut microbiome, did a really good diary of a CEO. So Zoe is an app, and basically what they've got is the biggest database about gut microbiome. So it's a good place to go learn. But one of the biggest things is that you need, instead of like an apple a day keeps the doctor away, is try and think of 40 different vegetables, fruits, like diversity. So that might be lentils, corns, seeds in your diet a week. So I count how many I get, and I'm on about 70 a week at least. I've recently changed to just planty because I felt like I wasn't hitting my micronutrient density that I needed. So I now get meal preps delivered. I'm not advertising for them, by the way. But I go through planty because I'm vegetarian. So I'm making sure that I'm getting a really diverse range of me micronutrients. I can see loads of people are liking it. I really appreciate that. Other things for me, gut microbiome, stress, massively trying to work on my stress. I also have wild dose bloaty, which is like enzymes, try and have fermented foods where I can, etc. But yeah, I don't know about germ theory versus terrain theory. I'm interested. Di Blanco, I don't know. You don't know what? Big C, hi beautiful, how you doing from Hawaii? I'd love to go to Hawaii. It's on my little list of places. Hello from Newcastle. A hell of a lot less tropical over here, but the hello is just as big. Mark, what's up everyone? Recovering alcoholic. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I'm a bit tired. These lives fry my brain, guaranteed about 40-minute mark, and I start getting tired. I need to, do you know what it is? I need to work out some kind of thing that I can do to support me me brain cognition during these lives, so I can try and do them a bit longer. There must be something I can do. Anyways, Mark, sorry, I didn't mean to yawn there. Mark, what's up, everyone? Recovering alcoholic here, 3 months clean, but had a relapse last weekend. Have you relapsed and stayed relapsed, or have you picked yourself back up, Mark? Because if you picked yourself back up, one thing I did, there's a difference. You've got lapse and relapse. Relapse is where you full on relapse and you think fuck it. I fell off the wagon. I've relapsed. I might as well just stay on this track. A lapse is where you have a slip and then you think, fuck that, not going back into addiction, and you pick yourself up and you get yourself back on the horse. So if you've stopped again, that's not a relapse, it's a lapse. The rule I give myself, if I have a lapse, and a rule that you can give yourself as well if you want, there is nothing more depressing than when you've got X amount of time under your belt and you have to restart that clock. So for me, what I say is, if I have a lapse and I pick myself back up and I say, no, this has not been a full-on relapse, I get to keep my start date, because it's so incredibly hard when you've relapsed to say, that was unreal, that feeling that I've been craving, to stop doing it anyways. You deserve to keep your start date, I say. But yeah, Mark, let us know, was it a lapse or a relapse? Because they're two very different things. The other thing is, ask yourself what happened to make us relapse, because then what you get to do is turn the negative into a positive. Think of it like data. Okay, this is a key, a bit of information that I've just gathered that I can use to prevent relapse in the future. So that might be, and I think around the 3 month mark, what it tends to be for a lot of people is we got cocky. If you've got cocky, then the lesson is don't get cocky. If it was you had stress, okay, how can I learn stress management, regulating my nervous system? Maybe it's I've spent time with the people who go out and get drunk and thought that I could do that, and it turns out I can't do that. I'm not ready to do that yet. So then think about, okay, how can I spend time with these friends which doesn't involve alcohol, do a different activity, or get rid of the friends. Yeah. Costa, what if you're a 57 years old man? I would just talking about in general. Are you talking about going back to the porn situation I was talking about, or are we talking about, or just, what can you give us some more information, please? Chris is saying sugar is normalised the same way alcohol is socially normalised, which is interesting. Yeah. Do you know, when I've been getting in taxis, it's mainly taxi drivers, not all taxi drivers, but some, when they're saying about mentioning that I don't drink, they're like, you don't drink. It's the same energy that I used to get when people say you were addicted to ketamine. Why would anyone be addicted to ketamine? It's that same energy of, why would somebody not drink? I'm because I don't want to. It's not good for my health. No other reason. I wasn't addicted. It's not good for me, my health, causing problems in my relationships, having anxiety the next day, not good for my nervous system. And it's it's so socially normalised that people think you're a weirdo for not drinking. If you're not an addict and you stop drinking, you look weird. And sugar's exactly the same. It's the same as, why would you be addicted to horse tranquilizer? I'm sorry, what? Say what? Right. I don't know what that even means, Grandmaster. Can you say boa woa? Boa woa? I don't know what that means. BU is, oh God, itchy nose. BU is saying, I feel fucked, can you help me? Yeah, just go to my website, School of Addiction, schoolofaddiction.co.uk. I'm starting to get tired now. My words are getting a bit gibberish. I'll answer 2 more questions. So what was my drug of choice? Was ketamine. Weed and mushrooms I don't consider drugs. Yeah, look, I mean, I do. I know people who've had some serious weed addictions. Weed sends me fucking loopy. It is very much a drug. I think my ADHD, autistic, fucking bipolar brain cannot handle weed at all. It sends us loopy loo. So yeah. Right, I'm just gonna go down to the bottom and answer 2 questions from the bottom. Scaffolders from Manchester say hi. Hi, have you been on before? Because I remember the Scaffies saying hi. Hello, the Scaffies. The Manc Scaffies as well. Like I say, I love some of my I don't speak to them anymore, which is a shame. I might get in touch. But I had some like mint friends who I met in Ibiza who were from, oh, where was it from in Manchester? Begins with S, just outside of it. Oh, I can't remember. Really annoying. All I can think is my friends from Leeds who are from Wakey. Anyways, I had friends from Manchester. I used to go there all the time. I fucking love Manchester. It's mint. Richard Guy. Hello, how you doing, Richard Guy? When you used to use ketamine, what do you think the ultimate aim was? A K-hole or something between normal reality and that K-hole? I just loved a K-hole. I loved it. Like, I lived life for a K-hole. Now, that was a K-hole where I was by myself. There was nothing worse than getting into a random K-hole when I'm, like, around people and I'm, like, think I'm, like, an alien or whatever. I'm like, oh, there was some random K-holes I've been in. But, yeah, that would be my aim. I just used to love being by myself, being in a K-hole. So, one of the things that, like, I practiced doing whilst I was a ketamine addict. So I thought that, like, the reason why I loved the K-hole, so for me, I'm really spiritual. And if I, like, set up getting ketty, it felt like a spiritual experience. And when I closed my eyes, I had aphantasia. So if you don't know what that is, it's common with like ADHD, where basically when you close your eyes, you just see blank, so you don't have a mind's eye. So, you know, if you say close your eye and visualize an apple, I couldn't do that. So what I started doing is thinking, right, I don't want to take ketamine anymore, but I love K-holes because it feels spiritual. I feel like I get spiritual signs. So I'm going to train myself to not have aphantasia, so that my favourite thing that I love to do, I can do naturally, which took us months and months of practice, and like research. And basically now what I do, instead of having a K-hole, I sit there and I meditate and I get to visualise things. It's not the same as a K-hole, but it's certainly similar. But yeah, that was my aim. But also I just liked having a line of ket, let's be real. I just loved a line of ket. Ideally ending in a K-hole. But it fucked up my life and my bladder, so now I have to love doing other things. Does anybody, what's people who've in addiction recovery, because I feel like there's 2 camps of people who've recovered addiction. Does your old drug of choice make you feel sick of the thought of it and you don't like it? Or do you have like a nostalgic feeling for it, but you just know that you'll never go back to it? Because I'm in the camp of, like, when I think about ket, I'm like, oh, I fucking love it. Like, I've got this love for ket, but it's like that ex-toxic boyfriend that you know you need to walk away from, you eventually walk away from, and you know you can never get back with. That's what ketamine's like. It's like an ex-toxic boyfriend. But I know people who've in addiction recovery who's like, the thought of like heroin or whatever it is just makes us feel sick. The smell of it, it's horrible. So what camp are people in? I'm interested to know. It's the toxic ex, or the ex that you're like, ew, you are disgusting. Why was I ever with you? Right. Boxing, I love cave holes too. Yeah, cave holes, I've never heard it called that. Yeah, I just love to meditate now, though. It's the next best thing. And to be honest with you, at least with the meditation, like, realistically, like, it wasn't really that, like, I thought it was spiritual, but like meditation, I like to like sit there and think, and I get to enter me psyche. For me, it feels spiritual, so I always get like little spiritual signs and stuff like that, but also like delve into me psyche. So it's actually really helpful. It's a helpful natural alternative to K-hole. And this is the thing, we can find alternatives to whatever it is. So if we think about our addiction, think about the positives of it. I always think it's important to acknowledge that, like, the addiction, we enjoy it. Let's not just shame ourselves and say shit, because like realistically we're lying to ourselves. There's a reason why we love smoking weed. There's a reason why we love porn, or we loved, for what we're talking about, cave holes, whatever it is. So write down all the pros of your addiction, and then think about, okay, what alternative like can I create which isn't destroying my life? So for me, it was aphantasia, meditation. Richard Guy, more nostalgia. It's like, let's try this again once and see what happens, even though you know it'll be bad. Yeah, this is the thing, it's nostalgia, but just like, yeah. Yeah, so you're in the toxic ex, but you still got a thing for crew. Always a paradox, Tetra saying. Yeah, it always is. Everything in life is a fucking paradox, isn't it? The Durids Poetry Corner, can I get a channel shout out? Absolutely. And Durids, comment on me any of my content and I'll give you a subscribe. But yeah, can anyone give the Poetry Corner a subscribe? I love doing poetry. I've got one of me videos that I did. I think it's one of the only videos I've got uploaded as opposed to shorts, is a little part of a poem that I did. So yeah, comment on one of me things and I'll follow you. Lee, having children and living for them means more than getting high. Yeah, absolutely. The only thing is, one thing I realised, so I very selfishly thought, and this is my, people say, have you got any regrets in life? And the closest thing I've got to a regret, I can't say full regret because he wouldn't be the son I've got. But one of the things that I really wish would have been different is the fact that I thought that having a kid would be able to stop me addiction. I thought if I have a child, I'll stop me addiction. I got pregnant, I did stop me addiction, then I relapsed when I was pregnant, and then I relapsed twice in his early ages of life, and I realised that a kid isn't enough. Like, you can't ever stop an addiction for somebody else. You have to do it for yourself. So, hey, my child was a huge factor, because I thought, I don't want generational cycles to continue. I don't want my son to have to then deal with addiction or deal with, you know, mental health and stuff like that because I've got an addiction. But also I had to love myself enough. It wasn't just about my son. So yeah, I think that's a good hook, but you need more. Richard Guy, it must be, but I tell you what, Lee, to go back to your point, I became a much more ferocious version of myself, aka developed a backbone when I had a kid, because all the shit that I let fly in my life prior to having a child, I don't anymore, because I'm like, I'm not allowing my child to have nonsense in his life. And it's a shame that I couldn't have that same backbone before I had a kid. But yeah. Richard Guy, it must be unusual with your background to view ketamine as beneficial if it's also potentially life ending, sorry. Well, no, I mean, look, let's be real with it. So like, okay, so some people prescribe pre-gabapentins, and that is beneficial for them and can save their life. Some people are massively addicted to pre-gabs, ruining their life. do you know what I mean? I think for me, like, it's great. I can understand why ketamine can save lives and be done with assisted therapy or be done as microdosing, like through in a medical setting. Because the reason why I developed a ketamine addiction, I always loved ketamine. Don't get us wrong. I always just loved being ketty, but it was always like an after. So like I loved recreational drugs and it would be in the after sesh. But the reason why I developed a ketamine addiction was because when I started doing my like intense, like my second degree in counselling, I had to do intense training on personal development. And what I started doing is I started triggering PTSD. So all of my traumas that I had, which I'd been pushing down with getting off my nut every day with alcohol or drinking, smoking, sorry, said alcohol and drinking twice, drinking, weed, pills, coke, everything. Because I've been pushing that all down, all of that stuff started coming up to the surface in my counselling training. And then I started having PTSD flashbacks. And then basically when I was having ketamine, I was able to talk to my friends about it. So all this stuff, this really fucking horrible stuff that had happened to us in my life, I felt like I could talk to my friends about it on the session. And it was like this weird experience where I felt like my trauma, I was disconnected from it, so I didn't feel triggered by it. So this is where like MDMA assisted therapy, it's like a similar experience to that. Because I've researched that a lot, where you feel like, oh, I can talk about like being raped, but I don't feel like I'm going into fight or flight. And I was going into fight or flight every day. So that's just one example of the trauma. So that's where my addiction to ketamine started. And I started to realise like everything I was processing in my counselling training I could talk about. So for me, it's not unusual. I absolutely understand why there's benefits of ketamine. The problem was, for me, I wasn't doing trauma-assisted therapy. I was trauma dumping on ketamine, which then within a very short space of time became a very big fucking problem. So yeah, it's a weird one. Now therapy, talking to friends, doing the inner self-help meditation, much better way than ketamine, I found. Yeah, Richard Guy. I was more thinking ketamine therapy when it was IV or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you meant, Richard Guy. I used to eat 28 pre-gabs all at once, used to get me mashed. Fucking hell, I can imagine. I remember taking one pre-gab mixed with ketamine. I would be fucking... I've never felt so wrecked in my life. Obviously you get a tolerance to it, but I remember the first time I was like, fuck me, what is going on? So I don't know how you're managing to take 28, but I suppose like any addiction, it's tolerance, isn't it? I know quite a few people who are addicted to pre-gabs. Richard Guy, yeah, you needed space away from this experience and an escape. Yeah, do you know what the problem is? And this is a lot of people in addiction is, if we're not addressing the root cause, then we're going to have an addiction problem. The problem with me was I had a root cause, which I was already masking with mind-altering substances. And then I went into my training and it was like prodding it. And this is a problem with therapy. So the problem with addiction therapy is, and it's a very big problem, and it's one that I came across as an addictions therapist and I was warned about and trained about, is if you have an addiction, there is always a root cause. I don't care what anybody says, there is a root cause. Now, if that root cause is trauma, it's like you can't deal with addiction without dealing with the root cause. Now, if you deal with the root cause first, you're more likely to make addiction worse, because as soon as you start opening Pandora's box, like my counselling training did, with the root cause, you're going to start getting flooded with all these chemicals, PTSD flashbacks, you're going to be having dreams, you're going to have like going to fight or flight. So what you're going to do, you're going to lean into the addiction more. So actually dealing with the root cause can worsen the addiction. However, if you're only dealing with the addiction, then you're always going to have the root cause bubbling under the surface, which means you're always going to be susceptible to relapse. So it's this really delicate thing that you've got to do. Now, what I've learned through myself, and this is why I think my personal experience is really helpful, and this is what my book is about, is what the best route is to stabilize yourself enough so that when you remove the crutch, the self-medication, which is the addiction, you're going to be safe enough and be able to handle dealing with the root cause. So yeah, that's what I think the route forward is, and I think that's something that a lot of services aren't doing at the moment, because I wasn't trained that way, and I've not experienced any training, and I've done a lot of training for a lot of different types of addiction things. So yeah. So it's Tico. Hello, how are you doing, Tico? I'm doing good, thank you. I'm actually doing really good. I've went through a really rough patch, and I've been, you know, when you have, like, your life gets flipped upside down and you feel like shite and you're like, but I've been every day practicing doing something that I love, and I've actually, despite me life falling apart around us, I've managed to keep pushing for positive stuff, and I feel like I'm coming out of it, which is really good. So yeah, thank you. So Tico's saying, what did the doctor diagnose? How did the doctor diagnose you with ADHD? I'm afraid I've been masking it for years. Have you done an online test? So if anyone thinks they've got a mental health disorder, what can be helpful, it's not a diagnostic tool, but it's helpful, is to do an online test. And I can send you one if you want, Tico. Just message it, like comment on me, any of me content, or go on my website. But you can do a test, and what that does is it lets you know how likely it is that you've got ADHD. On top of that, what you can then do is the questions that you get asked are going to be similar to the ones that the doctors ask you, so you can think about the responses that you're going to give. And I would say when you go for a diagnosis, so your GP is not able to diagnose. Remember that when you go in, first things first, because there's been so many people who've been turned away from GPs from getting the correct diagnosis because they've thought that they don't have ADHD. It's really important that if you feel like you've got ADHD and they're saying you don't, that you ignore them. Not like in a way of, like, you're not the, like, not diminishing them, saying that you don't know what you're talking about, but remembering that they are not the expert in ADHD and you are the expert in you. So if you've done the test and you're coming up with it and they're saying, I don't think you've got ADHD, what you need to say to your GP is, I appreciate that you feel like I don't, but I really need you to signpost us into somebody who is trained professionally at this, that is their speciality, because I've done an online test, I feel like it's coming up, and also I truly believe, and people around us, that I have this, so I need you to go and do that. I need to speak to a psychiatrist because there's something going on. Yeah, I would just argue your case. But another thing to do as well is have examples. So the questions that ask you, instead of just saying yes or no, just say yes, and example is, so for example, for me, for ADHD, one of the questions was, have you ever been impulsive? And I would say yes. An example is, I jumped on a flight and moved to Ibiza when I was 19 and I didn't have a hotel booked or anywhere to stay. ADHD, it's an example. So loads of different things like that. Monk, I was misdiagnosed with autism in the 90s and put on meds for it when in reality I have ADHD. Yeah, so I got diagnosed with ADHD, but I also have autism. I've got them both. And the problem with ADHD and autism is they cancel each other out. So my psychiatrist said that the ADHD is like so raw and spontaneous and outgoing, whereas the autism's so structured and introverted, and they kind of, and like, yeah, they kind of cancelled each other out. So it's I have both of them. I don't know whether you've got both, Monk, or if it's just that they totally did. And the thing is, you can misdiagnose so many things, because every disorder, if you think of what a disorder is in the DSM-5, it's just a cluster of symptoms. Now, any disorder in the DSM-5 will have overlapping symptoms, like pretty much every disorder. So somebody could have bipolar and it gets misdiagnosed for ADHD, or autism and it gets misdiagnosed as ADHD. Another thing is, though, often is we have a comorbidity of disorders. So what that means is you have a cluster. So you are more likely to have 2 or 3 disorders than just one. So, and realistically, let's be real, I don't think it is ADHD, bipolar, this, that. What it is it's essentially, it's neurodivergent, not neurotypical, because it's just a construct. Some people have sat together and said, this group of symptoms is that, this group of symptoms is this, and they're just giving it labels. And realistically, I just think it's a neurospicy brain with a lot of triggers in life, in childhood, which triggered these genes, not this and that, personally. Look like a very sexy version of Bonnie Blue. Loads of people have told us I look like Bonnie Blue. Who the fuck is Bonnie Blue? I need to go look her up. Someone said a porn star. I'm going to go look her up. Yes, I've said it too many times now. Right, my dog has run off chasing a deer. 10-minute walk has now turned into an hour walk. Oh, dogs, honestly. Dogs are dickheads, so let's be real. Like, every dependent I've got, I fucking love them. Like, my dogs and my child, love them. Best things in my life, but fucking arseholes, the lot of them. Honestly, like, they just causing absolute nonsense in my life. And I'm like, can you just stop, please? Just behave. Oh, God. Never be like no, I don't need to be a porn star. Right. Autism is quite recognisable. I'm confused. Are you saying I'm not recognisable as having autism? I've had a few people say that I don't present as autistic. I got diagnosed officially. It took 2 years. I was officially diagnosed with autism about 2 months ago. And they said that I hit every single thing on maximum marks for every single thing with autism. The only thing that I didn't is on organisation and routines and stuff like that. And they were like, if you had hit high on that, we would have said that you were misdiagnosed. Your ADHD was misdiagnosed. But they were like, that's actually because you've got autism and ADHD. So I think for me, I present more ADHD than autism. That's the problem. That's why I don't look like I'm autistic. But I am very much so autistic. Oh, just got a ringing in my ears. Has got a huge touch autism, guys. Unchained Melody. I have ADHD and I need to stop chasing dopamine. Phone use, women, avoiding looking for work. So do you want some support with ADHD? I would say the things which have helped me most with my ADHD is, 1, stop trying to not have ADHD. The more I learn to love my ADHD and accept my ADHD, the easier it seems to be. So by that, instead of saying I need to stop doing this, I need to stop doing that, because that's making you feel shame and guilt. And the problem with shame and guilt is, so with ADHD, we have it's all to do with like dopamine regulation. It's fucked. It's pretty fucked. And if we are flooding our brains with like cortisol and adrenaline and noradrenaline, and we're feeling it's shame and anxiety basically because we're failing, because we've got ADHD, then we're going to get procrastination, and we're really not going to be able to hijack our brains. So first things first is I learn to love my ADHD. First of all, ADHD is we're amazing at task, like problem solving, pattern recognition. We're 300 times likely to be an entrepreneur because we can solve problems and see problems other people can't have. So praise yourself for the good stuff. Then use that to hijack the not so good stuff. So, right, I've got an issue. What is the issue? Let's go back to it. So I've got an issue. I use my phone. I chase women and I avoid looking for work. So use that problem solving on how am I going to solve these problems. Like spend a good hour doing it. We love a good procrastination anyway, so you can procrastinate the phone use and stuff like that with learning. And think about what am I going to do to change that. So for phone use, for me, I've switched it up to, okay, I need dopamine. Instead, I've switched all my algorithm up to jiu-jitsu, stuff that that is going to be helpful. It's my passion. I've got this doll which is turning up so that I can practice the stuff that I see on my phone in real life. So doing it the other way. The other thing that I do is switch up phone use. I'm going to be using phone use. Watch things which are helpful. So podcasts, learn about things. Have my algorithm all about learning. So try and, yeah, I'm going to need dopamine. That's a good source of dopamine. Let's make it healthy and beneficial in life, not negative. Looking for work, okay, maybe it's that the jobs that I want to do are shit. So instead, what would my dream job look like? And try and do that. What job would be in alignment with my ADHD? So for me, content creator, how am I going to do that? So yeah, put that ADHD brain to solve problem solving and stop beating yourself up about having it, I would say. It's worked for me. Has anybody else got any tips for ADHD? Because obviously that's just my approach. Everyone's different. Dawn, do you think ADHD is actually trauma? A lot of people in ADHD communities online agree. I think it's 100% trauma. ADHD is, so if we think of it like, just because it's trauma doesn't mean it's not a disorder. So what's happening is when we're growing up in conditions which are chaotic, so it might be that we're sensitive, so we might have autism, is why ADHD and autism go hand in hand, or it might be that we're just extra sensitive, so intuitive types. So it might be that we're sensitive and we have chaotic parents. But what happens is if we are grown up in a form of chaos, which can be extreme abuse, or it can be just other kinds of chaos, our brains develop in fight or flight, hypervigilance. And because our brains are developing like that, what then happens is we are in a constant state of fight or flight, which is, if we think about what fight or flight is we need to be alert to everything in our surroundings. We need to be fast. We need to think fast. We need to act fast. We need to solve problems. That is just ADHD in a nutshell. It's just fight or flight. The problem is, so if you're a child, so Gabo Mate is proven through time and time again working with clients as a psychiatrist that if the parents can create a sense of routine and calm, ADHD heals in children. The problem is when you get past the age of 25 or 27, your brain is developed and then it's much harder to do it. But not impossible. You can certainly help. Like I've managed to do things like calm my nervous system and, treat it like my brain's in a constant state of anxiety. What can I do to help it? But yeah, I do agree with that 100%, Dawn. And I really struggle to believe the other things, like the hunter-gatherer model of ADHD. Like, I don't think ADHD, there's no specific gene for it, for starters. But I don't think ADHD would, although it would be brilliant at hunting, we're also very fucking scatty. We're a fucking scatty bunch, let's be real. Would get distracted. wouldn't follow through with the hunting. Would end up like playing some games and then inattention would come in. So I don't believe in that. There's no gene for ADHD, so I don't believe that it's like like a genetic predisposition, like bipolar. To be honest with you, I think pretty much every disorder though is trauma. Because this is, even if it is genetic, it's usually triggered by childhood. Joseph said, I've subscribed to your channel, love your channel. Thank you for the subscription. If anyone could subscribe who hasn't, that is such a helpful way to get my channel out to the right people. So thank you. Hello, Maine. Hello. Where are you from? I'm from Newcastle, England. I bought a book by Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normal, last week. I haven't read that one. I want to. Is that the one about autoimmune diseases and stuff? Yeah, it's so interesting. I've seen a lot of podcasts that he's done on that book, but I actually haven't read the book. Scattered Minds is about ADHD though. But yeah, what Gabor Mate is saying in The Myth of Normal is, you know, it's reflected in so much research. Like we talk about, like even we've been talking about sugar today on today's live. Like there's so much research. Like we go to the GP and they're like, first point of call, put one antidepressants. No, first point of call should be go and sort out your physical health. Like it's like first point of call, get on Mandura. No, look after your physical health. Like it's so important. But stress is such a big impact, and the book talks a lot about that. This is why I always say, if people think that they've got an issue with addiction and they're like, oh, I love to smoke weed, and if that's making you feel less stress on your body is going to be much worse than weed. No doubt in my mind. Obviously weed with nicotine, a different topic, but stress is so dangerous. Connection, so yeah. But I hope you enjoy it, guy. Gabor Mate is my fucking hero. I love him. Ado is saying I can sleep listening to you. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. Oh God. Terry, no such thing as ADHD, for fuck's sake. Look, there's very much, just because ADHD is what I've just said, it's like it's the brain developing on childhood trauma. Just because it's not like there's no gene for ADHD does not mean that there's no such thing as ADHD. I mean, you cannot tell me there is no such thing as ADHD, because as somebody who lives with ADHD, and has, I don't know why, but ADHD, like you kind of birds of a feather flock together. Every fucker I know has got ADHD. It is very much a thing, and you like, there's no fucking way you're telling us it's not. Your voice soothes my stress. Loads of people say that. That's like, loads of people say that my voice is really calm, and like even just people in my life, I'm like, I don't. I'm like a bundle of fucking chaos, but for some reason my chaos outwardly sounds calming. Fuck ADHD, and it's a menace. It's an absolute menace. Absolute fucking nuisance. But hey ho. But also it's a nuisance, but it is beneficial. I think there is a lot of positives from ADHD as well. Has anyone seen the TED Talks, ADHD is my superpower? It's very interesting. But it's like if ADHD was a superhero, you'd be like saving people, and then you'd be saving the wrong person. You'd end up getting the villain and the villain and the victim mixed up. Or you'd turn up too late. Oh, sorry, I'm here to save you, but I've got a bit time blind, so I'm an hour late. It's already happened. We wouldn't be the first go-to superhero, that's for sure. I'm sick of parents labelling their kids for bad parent and poor kids being labelled. Do you know what's so ironic about this, Terry, though? If you're a bad parent, your child is likely to have ADHD. If you go away and read Scattered Minds, that's a good point. But there's a lot of research that points towards this. That's just a good book, which is easy to understand. If you've got a bad parent, your child's brain is going to be developing in a state of fight or flight. Like, so for instance, if your parent is abusive, shouting, 1 minute here, next minute not, up and down, your child is going to be likely growing up fearing for their life, because a child's safety depends on their caregivers. If you've got a bad quote unquote bad parent, I don't think there's such things as bad parents. I think they're just children who grew up and life is fucking hard. But if you've got a bad parent, you are likely to have ADHD, especially if you were a sensitive child. So I think your point that you're making is incomplete, Terry. And I have to stand by that. If we think of it as well, like ADHD is a set of symptoms. Like, it's a diagnosis is just a set of symptoms. So if a child is presenting as ADHD and they have a bad parent, it is likely ADHD. So we can't say that the parents are excusing the kids. And the problem is, if the parent themselves are struggling and then they've got a child that's got ADHD, that's going to be exasperating whatever's going on for the parent, because parenting is fucking difficult, let alone with a neurodivergent child. I've got an autistic child and it's fucking hard. Yeah, I just finished The Body Keeps the Score on Spotify, and I'm going to look for Scattered Minds. Body Keeps the Score, oh my God, such a good book. Basil von der Kolk, who wrote Body Keeps the Score, is literally shaped all trauma theory. I mean, it was one of our core books to read for my counselling training. It's so good, guys. If you've got PTSD, anxiety, even addiction, because a lot of people with addiction have had some kind of trauma, read that. It's The Body Keeps the Score. It's amazing. But yes, Scattered Minds is really good for ADHD. Boxing boy, people are too quick to put labels on kids. I do get what you're saying. The thing is, so I had this debate. My son, so basically my son's presented autistic since he's been very young. I mean, to give you an example, my son was speaking at the age of 6 months. By 1 year, he could spell out, he was like picking up his alphabet, potatoes, and writing the letters. He could spell long words. He knew all the planets at age 1. Very hyper intelligent child. Also having meltdowns, like loads of different things. He was presenting autistic. So I spoke to somebody at first who pointed it out, said he's having struggles in class, but he's functioning autistic, and if he does have autism, and a label can be dangerous for him. So I thought, I'm not going to go down that route of getting him labelled. Then I got pulled in by Senko, who said, look, your son is struggling. We think he's autistic. I think you need to put him in for a diagnosis. So the thing with a label is, I've been autistic, ADHD, bipolar, undiagnosed. Autistic and ADHD the whole of my childhood, majority of my childhood. Bipolar doesn't present until 17. I've ended up with addiction. Now, if I had have known that I was autistic, ADHD, I'll probably, and bipolar, the likelihood of us having an addiction would have decreased massively. So I get what you're saying about how labelling kids can be bad, but also labels serve a purpose. What can be bad with a label, whether you're a child or an adult, is if you start to use the label as a box to sit in. So like, I have ADHD, therefore I can't. I have autism, therefore I can't do this. No, I have autism, therefore I need to learn how to do this in a different way. It's when a label becomes limiting that it's a problem, and that's the same for adults or children. But labels are information and the keys to living a better life, because if you understand yourself, then you can learn to undo the unhelpful things, scaffold the weaknesses, and hone in on your strengths and let go of shame. Because I guarantee any person who gets a diagnosis will feel a sense of relief because they've been holding on to shame around the set of symptoms. So yeah. My therapist recommended it. She also gave me Codependent No More. I'm getting obsessed with psychology. Get Dawn. It's the best thing you can do. You know, for me, like that, because I was obsessed with ketamine, and instead I started becoming obsessed with psychology. Then I started branching into neuroscience. My foot's in. I've been sitting on my ankle funny. Neuroscience, biology. You're on a brilliant journey. I love that for you. Another book that's really good, Dawn, is the How to Drive Your Own Darn Bus. If you're into self-help, it's got practical things that you can do each week, and it's by this psychologist called Julia Christina, who's amazing, and it's based in like CBT. I loved that book. Waking the Tigers, another one, if you're interested in trauma. It's Peter Levine and Basil von der Kolk are like leaders in the field in trauma. It's Tico, because they aren't just labels but real people, daily reality. Yeah, that's the thing. It's when you start to allow the label to become your identity, that's when there's a problem. But I do think there is something that this is what I said, right? So when they were talking about me child and saying labels can do more harm than good, I got so many labels as a child which did a lot more harm than the label of autistic and ADHD could have done. My labels were lazy, rude, chatterbox, selfish, all these different labels, which I was being told repeatedly by parents, teachers, other people slagged off. And I had these whole labels, my entire identity that I internalized, and felt like a shit, broken, selfish, lazy, shitty human being, which then no wonders why I've lent into addiction. Now I've got the labels of, I've got ADHD and autism and bipolar. But I haven't just stopped there. I'm like, okay, that's the label. But okay, so that means I've got certain weaknesses and I've got different strengths. So let's lean into the strengths, and how, now that I know that these are my weaknesses, what does proven research say I can do to scaffold these weaknesses so that I'm not getting taken out by my autism? It's not debilitating. My ADHD isn't debilitating. And how do I hone in on my strengths? So labels can be just information. Robert, Luke, listen to this lady. She has a handle on ADHD and even drug dependency. Listen to this podcast and connect her where necessary. She invites people to contact. Yeah, please do contact Luke if you want. I think absolutely. I used to think this until I used to think that people are saying it's bad. I remember sitting in my class. It was my first college course I was doing, and we're having a debate on ADHD. So this was like 2010. ADHD wasn't as prevalent. It's increased the diagnosis by, the last time I looked was 700 and something percent. It's probably much higher now. But we were having this debate in class around ADHD about it's just bad parenting. And the reason why that's never sat with us is I've got a cousin who had ADHD, who the parent was lovely. I mean, my auntie's absolutely lovely, but it was very much a thing. You can't get diagnosed with ADHD without having a full set of symptoms. A bad kid versus ADHD, very different. So I knew it was a real thing. So I'd seen a 4-year-old flipping tables, that is mental, ripping TVs off walls. So yeah, and turns out they have autism. So again, sensitive child. like if you think about chaotic childhood, fight or flight, if you've got autism as a child and your senses are huge, life is going to feel like threatening. So brain development on fight or flight, again, why autism and ADHD can coexist. Richard Guy, what are the main things when it comes to scaffolding? Yeah, so for instance, right, so if we go on my autism, now I realise that I get sensory overload. Well, autism and ADHD, I get sensory overload. Now that I'm aware of that, I know that if I'm going to get on a bus or go to a shopping centre, I'm around a lot of people, get me headphones on and put music in, because then I've not got noise from here, noise from there, noise from everywhere. So it's not about not leaving the house or not going to public spaces. It's about, okay, that like burns us out and causes issues, so put headphones in, or you can get loop buds. Other things with scaffolding with ADHD. Okay, so one of the biggest things is like chaos. I am really messy. I'm a naturally messy person. I've struggled with this. And the problem with being messy is I hate being messy because it makes us feel stressed. And then I go into freeze mode where I procrastinate tidying up, and then it becomes more stressful. It's this big cycle. So I also know that with ADHD, I procrastinate doing things because I don't have the same motivation, because my dopamine receptors are skewed. So what have I done to keep myself organised is create little habits one at a time and praise myself for that little habit and the micro habits. So praise myself so I get a hit of dopamine. So the first habit that I started doing was when I've get me coffee out, really simple thing, stop and put me coffee back and then go, you just did that, brilliant, new habit unlocked. So I always say like new habit unlocked. It's a bit of a dopamine buzz. Started creating that habit. Next habit was when I leave a room, scan about, look for things which belong in the room I'm going to and take them. So just little micro habits. Make things easier, so I know out of sight, out of mind. So I've got a Hoover that is a pretty Hoover that can be on display in my sitting room so I can see it, so I'm using it. I put things that belong upstairs on my stairs, so when I pass them, I have to take them up. I bought myself, so I hated mopping, so I spent a couple of £100 because I get PIP on a Hoover mop, so it does it all in one go, so it's not a long boring task. Put things where that making little systems that make my life easy. And then every time I do it, praise myself and go, new habit unlocked. Fucking mint, Ashley, you never used to do that. Look how fucking tidy you are. You're smashing life. Just constantly bigging myself up so I'm getting little dopamine buzzes. There's loads of little things. You can use AI to help you create systems. Atomic Habits is an amazing book for people with ADHD and addiction, or anyone who just needs to create good habits. And if you can't read a book because you've got ADHD, the author of Atomic Habits has just done a Diary of a CEO recently. Watch that because it's an hour. And that's another thing. When I tidy up, I have a podcast in the background or music on, like a playlist, so that it's like motivating. So it's not just tidying, it's like hijacking dopamine reward. So just having the label of ADHD is knowing my dopamine is fucked. So how can I hijack my dopamine, like dopamine reward system in a way that is ADHD friendly, essentially. See you later, guy. I think I'm going to go as well. I'm knackered. 1% plus, we're all happy. Yeah, just 1%. Try and just do 1% every day. It talks about that in the Atomic Habits book. Richard Guy saying nice advice. Thank you. Has anybody else got any tips for ADHD? I am going to go soon though. Any tips for studying? I have to study a book. I can't get on audio and I keep reading the same page over and over. I can't take it in. Dawn, I'm sure I've just seen an app. I don't know what it is, but it's an app where you scan the book and it reads it out like an audio book. Is that also, have you got ADHD, Dawn? Because that sounds very ADHD. But yeah, there's an app. I don't know what it is though. I would look it up. Ask AI. There's also, I mean, most books you can get an audiobook though. I just listen to audiobooks. I've never finished a book that you've got to read apart from Harry Potter. But I listen to audiobooks. And I just also, do you know what I do as well, Dawn? I've got to admit, because I am ADHD, so I do struggle to complete a task. When the dopamine's run out, that book is no longer interesting to us. So what I do is I just rotate books. So I'll have a bit of this and then I'll switch up to a new book. And then I'll switch up to a new book and I just kind of like, I'll go back to that one and I just kind of rotate. And I do want an audible. And again, you can listen to audible while you're doing tasks that you don't want to do. Dawn, oh, I'm going to try that, not diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I have. I mean, just from the sentence you said there straight away, I thought, I can't diagnose. I would go, if you comment on any of me content or go to my website, Dawn, I'll send you a link. You can do an online test. It does sound very potential, but you can't diagnose someone for having ADHD off one comment online. Like, I couldn't diagnose someone anyways, but yeah, if it would make sense if you already think that and you struggle to read a book because your brain's just going, yeah. It could be also a numerous of things though. Yeah, that's me. I've booked a course for July and I have to learn horse anatomy. The book is massive. The fact that you're learning horse anatomy sounds very ADHD. Like honestly, if you ask any ADHD person, what are the different skill sets you've accumulated over your lifetime, it is going to be a mad bunch of stuff. Oh God, I know astrology, and I can literally, I can literally tell you what your birth chart means whilst dancing on stilts. If I needed to, which I never would need to. It's so funny. Yeah, I'm pretty much the ADHD poster girl with no diagnosis. Yeah, I mean, you don't really need a diagnosis, do you? But yeah, it's funny. There's always loads of memes like, I'm not diagnosed, but there'll be signs. It's doing things as well, like coming up with the most mental, mental ways to get through things. Like, if there's a problem, it will be solved. It will be the most outlandish way of solving a problem, but it will be solved, trust me. Oh, you've been obsessed with horses since you were 3. I thought you just decided you wanted to learn about horse anatomy, which again wouldn't be surprising since I was 3 and I have 5 of them. Oh, I love that. I love that for you. I wonder though, is it again, so I've got ADHD and autism, and so the two of them cancel each other out. So like special interest is more autism whereas ADHD is more chaotic. It'd be worth looking into the two things because autism can also present as ADHD. If you go to comment on any of your content, I'll send you a little online diagnostic tool for both of them, and it'll give you a bit of information. So if ever you do want to go down the diagnostic route, you've got a little bit of like knowledge, but obviously you can't diagnose with them. My kitchen has been half painted for 4 days and I'm supposed to be doing that right now. Yeah, I've got so many half done jobs. I'd started ripping up the carpet of my stairs, and I had like stairs with no carpet for like 4 months because the dopamine had burnt out. Then luckily me landlord said he was coming to inspect me house. So I'm like, right, I'm gonna have to sort them stairs out. They look fucking phenomenal now. They're best DIY stairs I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, the dopamine burns out, doesn't it, before you're finished. Right, I'm going to have to go though, guys. But it's been lovely chatting to you. If anyone can give us a subscribe, or just even like me live, that's really helpful to my channel. It drives us out to the people who needs us. Thanks to everyone who's joined. I'll be back on tonight at 9 p.m. I'll also be live on Friday at 9 p.m. So yeah, and if anyone's sent a comment that I've missed and you want us to answer it, please go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk, and I'll get back to you. Or just comment on any of my content. I'll pick it all up. But anyways, I'm going to go. Bye. Oh, sorry, just before I go, what's my schedule? It's on, yeah, Gina, go with the link for the diagnosis. If anyone wants that link, go on to me, just comment on any of me content or send us a message and I'll send you links for whatever it is. If you go on my YouTube website, it tells you everything about when I go live, but it's essentially Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 10 a.m. GMT time, and then Mondays and Wednesdays 9 p.m. at night. Anyways, I'll see you later.